Chapter 161, New Trait. After killing the Orc King, Galliner fell to his knee due to exhaustion and excessive blood loss. Sir Galliner. Alaric's voice drifted into his ears and he felt a pair of hands holding onto him, preventing him from falling over. My lord, I have done my job. The Transcendent uttered with deep breaths. Hearing this, Alaric smiled faintly and nodded. Yes, Sir Galliner. You have exceeded my expectations. Please don't say anything more and take this chance to rest. We will handle everything here. Galliner acknowledged his command with a nod of his head. He then handed him the dark diamond shield and the rare steel sword. Thank you for lending me your shield and sword, my lord. Alaric brought him to a safe corner before he returned to the battle. With the support of William and Warwick, the Orc lords were quickly taken down. At this moment, only 3 Orc lords were left and they were covered in wounds and bruises. They were surrounded by a group of elite knights who were staring at them with cold gazes. At this moment, Alaric appeared next to the elite knights. I'll handle one of them. You guys take care of the other 2. Yes, my lord. The elite knights responded. In the next moment, Alaric chose his target. It was an Orc lord holding a pair of axes. With a quick pounce, he brandished his sword, bringing forth a destructive sword wave that tore through the air. Whoosh! The Orc lord was already spent and it was close to depleting its mana. In the face of this attack, all it could do was take the full brunt of the damage. It used what remained of its mana to shield its body. Bang! The sword wave struck the beast and cut open its flesh. TSK. Alaric clicked his tongue. The power he had released wasn't even half of what Galliner had unleashed to kill the Orc King. This left him dissatisfied and also marveled at the huge difference in strength between a Transcendent Knight and an Elite Knight. The Orc Lord that had been struck by the sword wave slammed into the wall. The gaping wound in its chest bled profusely, making it weaker. Seeing that it was still alive, Alaric lunged at the monster and stabbed its head with his sword. KK. The light in its eyes vanished and it soon collapsed to the ground. Thud. Alaric no longer spared it a glance. He turned his head to check the situation. There were only 2 Orc lords left and they were being ganged up on by a group of elite knights. A few minutes later, the 2 monsters finally fell. Now that all the powerful monsters had been killed, the morale of the troops rose exponentially. The main force led the troops in decimating the remaining Orc generals and Orc warriors. This time, it had become a one-sided massacre. The human warriors were like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. After another hour of intense battle, the last Orc warrior died. We won. I'm alive. It's finally over. Everyone cheered as they collapsed in exhaustion. It was a tough battle and not one warrior was uninjured. Meanwhile, Alaric also received a notification from the system. _____. Mission complete. Rewards: 800 battle points, 40 EXP, 40 stat points, equipment upgrade card X1, random trait card X1. ____. Do you want to use your random trait card? Yes, no. Alaric clicked, yes, without much hesitation. You have awakened the B-rank appraisal trait. Appraisal? Alaric raised an eyebrow after receiving the notification. Do you want to select the target for appraisal? Yes, no. A notification written in white characters appeared in front of him when he subconsciously moved his gaze to the approaching Argus. Huh? What's this? He curiously clicked, yes. Argus, Knight, EXP, 489/500. Potential, D. Traits: horseback riding, C. Swordsmanship, C. Archery, D. Territory management, B. Close combat, D. Strength, 85. Stamina, 62. Agility, 77. Vitality, 66. Endurance, 71. Mana, 88. Alaric was stunned when he saw the rows of texts that appeared in front of him. It actually showed Argus's attributes. Appraisal. What an apt name. Alaric was excited at the new trait he had acquired. It could actually show the numerical representation of someone's attributes. While he was immersed in his thoughts, Argus stopped in front of him and smiled. "My lord, congratulations on the victory." The old man's words pulled him from his thoughts. Alaric stared at the old knight. He was also injured, but he only had light injuries. With a shake of his head, he replied, "I don't deserve your words, my lord. It is only because of everyone's efforts that we managed to emerge victorious." The old baron smiled at his words. "That's true, but you were the one who gathered us here." Argus stared at the young man with admiration. To achieve this kind of success at his age, even his father wasn't this good. "By the way, how are Sir Henry and the others doing?" Alaric asked, his face turning serious. Sensing the sternness in his voice, Argus immediately responded. "Lord Dillon has awakened and his condition is already stable. As for Sir Henry and Lord Smith, they are still receiving treatment." Hearing this, Alaric frowned. Looking at his gloomy face, Argus reassured him. "Don't worry, my lord. They are both elite knights. I'm sure they can recover from this." Alaric nodded in agreement. Elite knights had higher vitality and endurance, so they could recover faster as long as their injuries weren't fatal. "What about the casualties?" he asked in a low voice. The battle was more intense than he had anticipated because of the unforeseen circumstances. Argus took a deep breath before he answered. "We still haven't gotten a detailed report, but based on what I have seen, I think we lost almost 400 warriors." Alaric sighed upon hearing this. "Tell our soldiers to gather the corpses of our comrades. We will bring them to North Pine Town and bury them in Mount Tedra." Chapter 162, Cold Iron Deposit. The warriors who had nothing to do were tasked to take the usable parts of the orcs' corpses. Some were also instructed to collect the beast soul crystals. At this moment, Alaric was looking at the progress of his attributes. Alaric Silversword, Elite Knight, EXP, 102, 142/1000. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS, Close Combat, C. Archery, E. Hunting, E. Tracking, E. Sixth Sense, E. Monster Affinity, F. Mana Gathering, C. Appraisal, B. Strength, 170. Stamina, 180. Agility, 180. Vitality, 150. Endurance, 160. Mana, 228. Battle points, 980, 1780. Stat points, 40. Requirements for the next advancement, 1000 EXP, 250 in all attributes, and 10,000 battle points. Just then, he heard someone approaching. He raised his head and saw Fredrin walking toward him with a solemn look on his face. Fredrin saluted and said, "My lord, I'm here to give you the battle report." Alaric nodded at his words. "Go on. I'm listening." "We have already retrieved the corpses of our fallen comrades and 389 were killed in the battle. 220 are seriously wounded." Fredrin reported the casualties with a grim expression. After hearing his report, Alaric let out a deep sigh. He then tapped Fredrin's shoulder and told him, "You should get some rest. Have someone treat your wounds too." Fredrin nodded. "Yes, my lord." Alaric went to visit the warriors who were receiving treatment and gave them a respectful salute. "Thank you for coming here with me, my brave comrades. The victory would have been impossible without your presence." He paused and scanned everyone's faces one by one before he continued. "I don't know what your lords have promised you, but I guarantee that all warriors who have participated in this battle will be rewarded accordingly." The warriors were ecstatic upon hearing this. "All hail Lord Alaric! All hail Lord Alaric!" Alaric waved his hand and left. This time he headed to where the corpses of the dead warriors were gathered. He saw a few warriors standing in front of the dead bodies with distraught faces. He also heard some people crying and bawling in front of their friends' corpses. Looking at the rows of corpses, Alaric felt a heavy pressure descending upon his shoulders. Some warriors sensed his presence and were surprised. In the next moment, they saw him giving the fallen warriors a respectful salute. While he was silently honoring the sacrifices of the fallen men, a voice drifted into his ears. "My lord, we have gathered all the beast soul crystals from the orcs' bodies." Alaric turned around and saw that it was Baron Nathan. "You don't need to tell me this. All the spoils from this battle will be divided between the houses who have participated in the subjugation," Alaric uttered in a calm voice. Baron Nathan revealed a troubled look. "I know, my lord, but everyone has decided to give you the beast soul crystals of the Orc King and the 6 Orc Lords." He beckoned to the warrior standing behind him. The warrior understood his intentions and presented the 7 beast soul crystals to Alaric. Alaric was taken aback. He thought that these greedy lords would take everything. He didn't expect that they would actually take the initiative to offer the best drops to him. Seeing that he was silent, Baron Nathan added, "Please my lord, take these crystals. Otherwise, there will be an infighting between the houses." Alaric knew that he was only giving a random excuse, but he didn't reject the crystals. He took them and placed them inside a leather pouch. "Tell the lords that I'm grateful for their thoughtfulness." Baron Nathan grinned. "I will relay your message to everyone, my lord. Please excuse me." Alaric nodded and waved his hand, indicating for him to leave. The Baron didn't linger any further and left. He then relayed Alaric's exact words to the lords. "That's good. I'm glad that Lord Alaric took the crystals." A lord sighed with relief. "Indeed. I'm sure everyone here agrees that House Silversword deserves most of the credit." Lord Argus squinted his eyes while observing the lords' faces. He was the one who suggested offering the 7 beast soul crystals to Alaric. He felt that only Alaric and House Silversword should take them. "Of course. If someone thinks otherwise, I will be the first one to punch their face." Lord Ermac snorted as he glared at the lords present. "That's enough. Everyone here is an ally. There's no need to create unnecessary tension," Baron Argus sternly remarked. The lords nodded upon hearing his words. The battle brought them closer to each other and they even thought of creating an alliance with House Silversword as the core. At this moment, an urgent voice suddenly echoed. "My lords." Everyone turned their heads and saw a group of warriors rushing toward them, their faces filled with excitement and joy. "What is it?" Lord Argus asked while raising an eyebrow. "We discovered a huge deposit of cold iron," the warrior reported. "What?" The lords were stunned upon hearing this. "Cold iron? There's such a thing here? What should we do, my lords?" the warrior hesitantly asked. Argus frowned. This could fracture the alliance that they were about to establish. When melted and refined, cold iron was even more durable than steel. The equipment made from it was also more valuable, so it was sought after by many lords and rich merchants. Unfortunately, this metal was rare and difficult to find. Argus grabbed the warrior's shoulder and asked with a serious look, "How huge is this cold iron deposit?" The lords became silent and they all stared at the warrior, waiting for him to speak. Sensing everyone's eyes on him, the warrior almost collapsed from the pressure. "We just discovered it, so we are not sure about the size, but based on what I saw, I think it's more than enough to arm the entire north with equipment made from cold iron." "That much?" Chapter 163, Baron Argus's Suggestion. "Did you send someone to inform Lord Alaric about this?" Argus asked. "Yes, my lord. I'm sure Lord Alaric has already heard of it by now." The warrior replied with a nod. "All right. You may go back and continue with the investigations. There might be more treasures hidden in this cave." Argus waved his hand, gesturing for them to leave. The warriors didn't stay any longer. They bowed and left to continue their investigation. Argus turned his head and noticed the gloomy faces of the lords. When he saw this, he already knew what was going on in their minds. "Stop overthinking it," he snorted. His words gathered everyone's attention. Sensing their gazes, Argus said, "Haven't you seen what kind of person Lord Alaric is? If you want a share of that cold iron deposit, then you guys better work for it. Don't even think about planning anything shady." He warned them. They could understand the implications of his words. Betraying House Silversword was no different than suicide. They had seen their military power, and it was something that their little houses couldn't afford to offend. "Don't worry, Lord Argus. We know our limits. We are not stupid." "That's right. We will never betray Lord Alaric and House Silversword." Meanwhile, Alaric had also received a report about the discovery. "I have never heard of a cold iron deposit in my past life." He frowned as he tried to remember the major events that had occurred in his past life. Suddenly, he seemed to have recalled something important. "I remember that the imperial family sent their army to wipe out the orc tribes after Vale was almost destroyed. In his past life, the imperial family sent a huge army to destroy the scattered orc tribes near the northern borders. It was even led by the second prince himself. Many northern lords were even asked to participate at that time. Did the second prince swallow the entire cold iron deposit all by himself? That was the only conclusion he could think of. Alaric shook off the random thoughts and focused on the matter at hand. He was certain that this could lead to trouble if not handled well. The northern lords might appear loyal now, but he knew that some of those people wouldn't hesitate to betray them for the sake of profit. While he was thinking how he should handle this problem, he saw the lords approaching him, their faces having varying expressions. Some were excited, some were nervous, and there were also those who looked unperturbed. Alaric's gaze happened to stop at a middle-aged warrior whose armor was covered in blood. This man was an elite knight from House Heinrich. He was probably a representative sent as a proxy for Baron Smith. "Do you want to use appraisal on the target?" "Yes, no." Alaric clicked, "Yes." Ray, Elite Knight, EXP, 63/1000. Potential, D. Traits, Horseback Riding, C. Spear Mastery, C. Archery, C. Close Combat, D. Hunting, D. Strength, 90. Stamina, 105. Agility, 139. Vitality, 94. Endurance, 90. Mana, 115. His attributes are very low for an elite knight. Only his agility is somewhat acceptable. Alaric commented in his mind. "My lord, I apologize for disturbing you when you have a lot of things to do, but I think we should discuss how we should handle the cold iron deposit." Argus didn't waste any time and went straight to the topic. Hearing this, Alaric closed the cyan screen. "I understand." He smiled faintly at the old baron and asked, "Then how do you think we should handle it, Lord Argus? Do you have any suggestions in mind?" Argus was taken aback, not expecting Alaric to ask for his opinion. After a moment of surprise, he gathered his thoughts and calmly responded. "Since you are asking for my humble opinion, then I will speak freely." Alaric nodded and gestured for him to continue speaking. "Everyone in the north is already aware of this orc subjugation mission, and we can't hide this fact from the Empire. This will draw a lot of attention, and once news about the cold iron deposit leaks, many will come to claim it for themselves, including the imperial family." The old baron uttered with certainty, to which everyone nodded in agreement. "So the first thing we should do is to keep things under wraps. I suggest that everyone here should sign a non-disclosure agreement, and whoever breaks the contract will face the collective attack." The old baron stated a convincing opinion. "That's indeed a wonderful idea, my lord. Then how should we divide the cold iron deposit?" Alaric stared deeply at the old man. Everyone gulped in anticipation. This was what they were worried about, and Baron Argus's next words might decide how the cold iron deposit would be distributed. Facing everyone's heated gazes, the old man took a deep breath before he replied. How about this, my lord? House Silversword will receive 60% of the total mined ore, and the rest will be divided evenly between the rest of us. The lords narrowed their eyes upon hearing this. His suggestion was within their tolerated range, so no one said a word of complaint. All that was left was Alaric's approval. The latter rubbed his chin with a thoughtful look. The old man's offer was very generous, and it seemed that everyone was satisfied with it. After a moment of silence, Alaric smiled and nodded his head. All right. Let's do that. House Silversword will take 60% of the total amount of ore that will be mined, and the rest will be distributed evenly between you guys. In exchange for taking most of the ores, House Silversword will be responsible for the safety of the miners. We will send an army to protect the area. That way, everyone here can be assured. The lords could only smile helplessly. He worded it like he wanted to protect the miners, but those with sharp minds knew that it was also a warning for them. Chapter 164, Wolf, Son of Jerry. In the next 7 days, news about the success of the orc subjugation quickly spread across the northern part of Estania, and it was still spreading throughout the other parts of the empire. The lords who didn't participate in the quest became even more concerned. They were afraid that House Silversword would unite the surrounding houses and oppress them for refusing to answer their call. The fact that House Silversword had 4 transcendents was also revealed, increasing the fame of this once obscure noble household. 3 names also became known to the public: Galliner, Warwick, and William. Stories about their battles became a favorite topic of conversation. At this moment, on top of Mount Tedra, thousands of people attended the funeral of the men who were killed in the orc subjugation. The funeral ceremony was officiated by a high-ranking cleric from the church. With a solemn voice, the cleric uttered, "Let's take a moment of silence for the warriors who sacrificed their lives for the sake of our safety." The crowd lowered their heads upon hearing the cleric's words. After another hour, the ceremony finally ended. Alaric was about to head back to the main mansion when a messenger came to approach him. "My lord, there is a letter from Lord Lucas." Alaric took the letter from him and waved his hand. "You may leave." The messenger bowed and left right away. Alaric removed the seal and opened the letter. So he is in the capital now. The official duel should begin soon. Alaric smiled faintly as he read the contents of the letter. He then folded the paper and put it inside his pocket before heading home with Galliner and a few other warriors. He jumped onto his horse, but before they could leave, a young voice drifted into their ears. "Lord Alaric." Alaric turned his head and saw a family of 3. It was a middle-aged woman holding a baby in her arms. There was also a young boy around the age of 13 or 14 standing next to her. The one who had called him was the teen, and it seemed like he had something to say, but his mother stopped him. "I'm sorry, my lord. I didn't discipline him enough," the mother apologetically said while pulling her son behind her. "Mom, I want to say something to Lord Alaric." The young man pleaded, but he was met with his mother's stern glare. Seeing this, Alaric was curious to know what he had to say. "It is all right. Let him speak." He nodded to the mother before giving the young man a look of encouragement. The mother hesitated, but since the Lord had already spoken, she could only comply while hoping that her son wouldn't say something rude. The young man eagerly stepped forward and gave Alaric a snappy salute. Alaric was a bit surprised to see this. From how he had performed the salute, it felt like the young man had been practicing it for a while. "My lord, I want to become a warrior of House Silversword. I want to be a hero like my father," the young man uttered with strong conviction. The mother, who was initially worried, suddenly cried when she heard her son's words. Alaric's gaze softened. "What is your name?" he asked. "My name is Wolf," the young man responded. "Wolf, what is your father's name?" Alaric stared at the young man. "Jerry. My father's name is Jerry," the young man replied. Alaric nodded his head. Wolf, son Jerry. If you want to become a warrior of House Silversword, then I will gladly accept you. However, becoming a warrior is not easy. It is filled with many challenges and dangers. Are you sure about this? The young man nodded with a determined look. I have already discussed this with my father. Have you gotten your mother's approval? This. The young man glanced at his mother, whose face was covered in tears. You should discuss this with your mother first. Once you have gotten her permission, then you can come and visit me. There was a reason why Alaric was willing to spare his time for this young man despite his busy schedule. Wolf, Knight Apprentice, EXP, 50/100. Potential, A. Traits, Swordsmanship, F. Archery, E. Close Combat, F. Hunting, F. Farming, D. Strength, 12. Stamina, 15. Agility, 18. Vitality, 11. Endurance, 12. Mana, 8. This was what he saw after using his appraisal trait on the young man. It turned out that this young man was already a knight apprentice, but the most special thing about him was his potential, which was similar to his own. Based on what I have seen through the appraisal trait, people with D-rated potential can become an elite knight. Those with the potential above C can become transcendents. He had uncovered this knowledge after repeatedly using the appraisal trait on everyone he had encountered in the past few days. My lord, I will come and look for you soon. The young man was satisfied now that he had spoken with Alaric. All that was left to do was to get his mother's approval. I will wait for you, Wolf, son of Jerry. Alaric chuckled and took one last look at the young man before he departed with the other warriors. Wolf stared at their disappearing figures with clenched hands. Mom, I have already thought things through. I want to serve Lord Alaric. Hearing her son's words, the mother forced out a smile. You are just like your father. She stared at the horizon as if she was looking at her late husband's image. Let's go home first. If you really want to serve Lord Alaric, then I won't stop you, but let's visit the chapel first and pray that Aru will accept your father in his kingdom. Hearing this, Wolf nodded while trying hard not to cry. As they walked home, Wolf muttered in his heart. Father, you always told me to find the right person to serve. I think I found the person I'm looking for. Chapter 165, The Head Blacksmith, Goran. Upon his arrival at the estate, Alaric encountered his mother outside the main mansion. Seeing her, he took out the letter sent by Lucas and handed it to her. Is this from your father? Maria asked as she took the letter. Alaric nodded. Yes, my lady. There were people around, so he couldn't speak informally with her. I will read it later then. Maria smiled and kept the letter. Anyway, how is the situation at the cold iron mine? She asked. The cold iron deposit was of huge importance to House Silversword. They could use the mined ores to upgrade the equipment of their warriors, and they could also sell the excess for additional funds. It is Sir Warwick's turn to look after the mines. I do not think someone will be stupid enough to attack it while he is there. Alaric chuckled in response. He had promised to ensure the security of the mining site, so he sent the warriors of House Silversword to guard the area in rotating shifts. That is good then. I will talk with you later. I still have some things to do. Maria gracefully left after bidding him farewell. Now that Lucas was gone, most of his tasks and obligations fell on her shoulders. She had been really busy in the past few days, and her workload increased after the cold iron deposit was discovered. Now that I have delivered Dad's letter, should visit the smithy and see if the weapon I ordered has been made. After their return from the orc subjugation, Alaric took a huge chunk of cold iron together with the mithril chains that he got from Fredrin and brought it to the smithy. He asked the blacksmiths of the household to create a sword that was suited for his dual-wielding sword style. He only had the rare steel sword. The other one couldn't keep up anymore after the recent battles that they had gone through. However, the main reason he asked for a customized sword was because he discovered that he couldn't use the equipment upgrade card on the rare steel sword and the dark diamond shield. As to why that happened, he still had no idea even until now. The group headed to the smithy, which was quite far from the main mansion. Soon, they arrived in front of an ordinary-looking two-story building. The rhythmic sounds of hammer hitting metal echoed and drifted into their ears. The warriors guarding the entrance of the smithy were shocked to see them. "My lord. Don't mind me." Alaric waved his hand and tapped their shoulders before he entered the building. Upon entering, the hammering sounds became louder, and those who weren't used to the noise might find it irritating. However, to Alaric, it was music to his ears. When he was young, he had always been fascinated with smithing, and he had even snuck out many times during his swordsmanship training to watch the blacksmiths do their work. The blacksmiths and their apprentices were too focused in their work that they failed to notice their arrival. Alaric didn't disturb these hard-working people and went to look for a certain blacksmith. There was only one person in the entire smithy who had the skills and the strength to make a weapon out of mithril. This was because of the strict requirements of processing this metal. An ordinary blacksmith wouldn't be able to withstand the heat when melting mithril, and they certainly didn't have the strength to mold it into a weapon. Only a blacksmith who had the power and the endurance equivalent to that of a knight could do this job. Fortunately, there was one such person in this smithy, a middle-aged man named Goran. Goran was the head blacksmith of the smithy, and he had decades of experience. Furthermore, he was also a retired knight, one who had some fame in his youth. Goran's workshop was on the 5th basement floor, and it took them more than 10 minutes before they arrived. As soon as they got there, Alaric saw a muscular middle-aged man with long graying hair leaning lazily on his recliner. His face was beet red and he was holding a leather flask, looking completely drunk. As Alaric walked inside the workshop, the strong smell of ale assaulted his nose. The middle-aged man who was dozing off heard their footsteps and abruptly turned his head. "Didn't I tell you that I'm still busy? Go and dash." "Ah. My lord." The middle-aged man immediately rose to his feet when he realized that it was him. He hid the leather flask behind him and let out a smile. "I see that you are doing well, Sir Goran." Alaric chuckled, not caring about the man's slovenly appearance. He was already familiar with this person since he was a regular visitor to this place. Goran squeezed out an ugly smile as he asked hesitantly, "Are you here for your sword, my lord?" "That is right." "Is there any update on that project, Sir Goran?" Alaric didn't look down on this man. He might look like a beggar, but his skills were the real deal. "About that. It will be better if I show you. Follow me." Goran signaled for him to follow. Alaric nodded and signaled for the others to stay before he followed Goran inside the forging room. The temperature noticeably increased, and it was even to the point that it could harm an ordinary person. "I apologize for the heat, my lord. This happened when I was refining the mithril chains you brought. It has so many impurities, so I had to. Look at me yapping about unnecessary things." Goran chuckled. "My lord, do you see that small clump of metal right there? That's what I got from the mithril chains. And that one right there is the smelted cold iron. I'm still waiting for them to cool down a bit before I mix them and form the blade." Alaric nodded. "How long would it take you to complete this project, Sir Goran?" Chapter 166, The Capital City of Estania, Kadera. Goran rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment before he replied. "If you need it immediately, I can expedite the refining and forming process. It should take me around 2 days to complete the sword. If my lord is not in a hurry, then I can make the sword of better balance and also more sophisticated, but it would take me 3 to 5 days to complete." Alaric furrowed his eyebrows upon hearing this. Goran could usually forge a sword within 2 days, including the smelting process. The fact that a master artisan like him needed a week to make this custom-made sword spoke volumes of its complicated forging process. "You can take your time, Sir Goran. I am not in a hurry. If there is anything you need, do not hesitate to let me know." Alaric wanted a good quality sword, preferably one at the level of a relic. However, he knew that it wasn't easy to forge a weapon at that level, so he didn't say anything to avoid placing unnecessary pressure on Goran. Actually, there is something that I need your help with, my lord. Goran mumbled hesitantly. Looking at his troubled face, Alaric raised an eyebrow. Go ahead, Sir Goran. As long as it is within my means, then I will do my best to fulfill your request. Goran cleared his throat and spoke. With the materials that my lord has provided, I can forge a relic, but there's one problem. He looked at Alaric with a stern look as he uttered. We need a beast soul warrior to engrave an ability on the sword. The more powerful the beast soul warrior, the more powerful the finished product will be. Alaric nodded. This was true, and he had read it in a book when he was young. Beast soul warriors had the ability to engrave their traits into certain weapons. Once successful, the weapon will carry the trait they had engraved. However, this was very taxing on the beast soul warriors because it would deplete their mana, and this would even cause irreversible damage if done incorrectly. This was the reason why there wasn't a lot of relic level equipment. Finding a beast soul warrior will be difficult, but I will try my best. In the meantime, please complete the sword first so that by the time I bring a beast soul warrior over, only the engraving process will be needed. Goran nodded. Yes, my lord. Then I shall not disturb you any further. Alaric left after bidding Goran farewell. After stepping out of the smithy, he wiped off the sweat on his face with a clean linen towel. Blacksmiths are really built different, but they should take care of their health too. Constant exposure to such level of heat might cause serious problems. I should ask Mom to create a public bathhouse here since the nearest one is too far from the smithy. I will worry about this later. Mom still has many things to do, so I should not add more to that. The most important thing right now is to look for a beast soul warrior. Where can I even find a beast soul warrior? Should I visit that old man from the church? Alaric thought about Bishop Anton. The old man was a 3-ringed beast soul master, an expert who had integrated 3 traits into his soul marks. If he could get the old man to engrave an ability into his sword, he wondered how powerful it would be. Author's note: Beast Soul Warriors is the general term, while Nth-ringed Beast Soul Master is the name of the realm. I can visit Hershey too and propose marriage. He had already gotten Nathan's approval, so all that was to formally ask Hershey. I am coming, Hershey. It was the 20th day of March, in the year 209 of the Estanian calendar. On this very day, the capital city of Estania, Caldera, was bustling with activity. The sidewalks were filled with tourists and locals. There were also droves of carriages passing by the cobbled roads. The reason for this surge of traffic was because of the event being hosted by the imperial family. It was an official match between warriors of the Estanian Dragon Leaderboard. Normally, an event like this wouldn't need the imperial family's presence, but the participants of this match were special. One was ranked 11th in the Estanian Dragon Leaderboard, while the other one was ranked 9th. These two were some of the most powerful figures in the empire, so the imperial family decided to host the match. Located at the innermost part of Caldera was a huge coliseum where the battle between the 2 top warriors would be held. Even outside the coliseum, the sonorous shouts of the spectators could already be heard. The venue was fully packed and everyone was boiling with excitement. At the center of the coliseum was a platform that was about 200 feet long and 75 feet wide. It was purposefully designed this way to give the fighters enough room to move around during their battles. At this moment, Lucas Silversword was in the resting area, watching the preliminary matches before his fight. They even invited elite knights to fight in the preliminary rounds. Lucas chuckled. This was the 4th preliminary match and his fight was scheduled next. Once this match ends, it would be his turn to step onto the stage. Suddenly, he saw a servant approaching him. My lord, please get ready. The main event is about to begin. Hearing this, Lucas nodded. All right. He then stood up and grabbed his equipment, a round steel shield, and a relic-level broadsword. Looking at the towering figure in front of him, the servant was intimidated. He felt like he was in the presence of a prehistoric beast. So this is the shield of the North, Lucas Silversword. After recovering from his shock, the servant cleared his throat. Please follow me, my lord. I will take you to the waiting area. Chapter 167, Prince Giovanni Aurelius Astania, the main event. When Lucas stepped out of the resting area, the spectators immediately spotted him. Look! It's the Shield of the North, Lord Lucas Silversword. The Shield of the North. The Shield of the North. The spectators went wild with excitement and they cheered loudly for him. The noise and the bustle of the crowd fell into Lucas's ears. It has been a while since I last stood in the middle of this crowd. The stern-faced Lucas let out a rare smile as he thought of this. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, the challenger, Roderick Lassiter, finally appeared. The spectators became even more excited and the noise inside the Colosseum intensified. Roderick Lassiter wore a cold look on his face as he waited for the preliminary round to end. I had been waiting for this very moment, Lucas. Show me how much you have progressed while you were in the north. In the spectators' seats, there was a section where only the most important guests were seated. Among the people seated in this particular section was the second prince, Prince Giovanni Aurelius Astania. He had short golden hair and a pair of ocean blue eyes. His expression was one of boredom, as if he wasn't impressed with the battle on the platform. How are the preparations? The second prince lazily asked as he looked at the man seated next to him. It was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his late 40s. He was dressed in fashionable noble attire embellished with shiny accessories. We have already prepared everything, Your Highness. All that is left is for Lucas to accept our invitation. The fashionably dressed gentleman replied with a respectful smile. Good. No matter the results of the match, we must get Lucas to join our side. The second prince uttered with a serious tone. The challenge this time was carefully orchestrated by him all for the sake of making Lucas come to the capital. As long as I have Lucas, the entire north will be mine. Prince Giovanni's eyes flashed with ambition. He refused to acknowledge the emperor's decision to give the throne to his elder brother. He believed that only the strong should take that seat. Yes, Your Highness. I will make sure that everything will go according to your plans. The middle-aged gentleman promised. I believe in your ability, Lord Thompson. The second prince smiled faintly. Suddenly, the crowd erupted into applause and their loud cheers echoed across the Colosseum. The most anticipated event was about to start and the protagonists of this event had been called onto the stage. Under the heated gazes of the spectators, Lucas stepped onto the platform. His gait was neither fast nor slow. It was measured with great precision, showing his confidence and dignity with each step. As he stood on the platform, a heavy pressure descended upon him. Lucas narrowed his eyes as he looked at the person who caused this pressure. Roderick Lassiter was also a tall man himself. He was over 2 meters tall with thick muscles under his steel armor. He was holding a mace and a diamond-shaped shield. Both were relic-level equipment and Lucas could tell this at a glance. While the referee was explaining the rules of the match, Lucas and Roderick locked gazes, causing sparks to fly in all directions. The tension was evident and the referee almost collapsed from the intense pressure they exuded. While wiping off his sweat, the referee announced the commencement of the battle. After the referee left, Roderick opened his mouth and shouted. Lucas! Show me what you got. His booming voice reverberated through the Colosseum. As soon as his voice fell, he stomped his foot and took the initiative to attack. His heavy footsteps caused the platform to tremble. A tremendous force was unleashed as he swung his mace. Whoosh! A violent flame burst forth, threatening to burn everything in its path. This was the unique ability of his mace, flame manipulation. It was engraved by a powerful beast soul warrior, so its firepower was undeniably strong. Facing these fearsome flames, Lucas snorted and waved his sword, letting loose his mana to release the sword's power. In the next moment, a powerful gale erupted and clashed with the flames. Bang! A deafening explosion followed after their attacks collided. Subsequently, the two transcendents released a barrage of attacks, causing more explosions and shockwaves. The spectators couldn't even follow their movements. They moved so fast that it looked like everything was a blur. Only the warriors at the level of knights and above could see what was happening, but even then, they could barely follow. Insane. So this is how the experts in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard fight. Who do you think will win? I can't say for sure. Lord Roderick has decades more experience, but Lord Lucas isn't a simple character either. No one could guess how the battle would conclude, but this didn't stop them from enjoying the fight. At this moment, Lucas's shield was already showing signs of cracks. It wasn't a relic-level equipment, so it couldn't withstand a series of beatings from a transcendent. Not to mention that Roderick wasn't just an ordinary transcendent, but an expert ranked 11th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. TSK. He knows that my shield isn't a relic, so he is purposely hitting it. I must end this battle before my shield breaks. Lucas thought to himself as he adjusted his stance. He wasn't just idling when he was in the north. When everyone was busy doing other things, he was secretly training by himself. He released a burst of mana to fully tap into the power of his sword. I must finish this in one move. As he thought of this, his figure blurred as he lunged at Roderick. The latter immediately sensed his attack and raised his shield to protect his body. He also imbued the shield with mana to increase its defensive abilities. Do you think that flimsy shield can block my sword? Lucas stared coldly at his opponent as he unleashed a powerful blow. Chapter 168, Lucas's Shocking Challenge. A sharp sword wind was released as Lucas swung his sword. It brought forth a terrifying force that caused the air to twist and turn. What fearsome sword wind! Roderick sensed the overwhelming might of the attack, so he immediately imbued the relic-level shield with mana to activate its power. The inscriptions on the shield lit up, forming a thick, defensive wall made of mana. In the next instant, a deafening boom rang out, forcing the spectators to cover their ears. What the hell? What if they suddenly launch an attack our way? Don't worry. We will be safe. Do you see the old man over there? That old man is the guardian of this Colosseum. He is a three-ringed beast soul master whose task is to ensure the safety of the spectators. What? There's actually such an expert here other than Lord Lucas and Lord Roderick? Of course. As the dust cloud subsided, everyone saw a massive crater on the platform. Look! Lord Roderick seems to be injured. Everyone could see that Roderick had received serious injuries after taking on that blow. There was a small cut on his forehead that caused bleeding. Even his steel armor couldn't withstand the attack and sustained some damage. However, Roderick remained calm as he stared at Lucas on the opposite side of the crater. If I hadn't activated the power of my shield in that last second, I could have lost an arm. Lucas Silversword. I still can't beat him. Roderick appeared calm on the surface, but he was reeling in shock deep inside. Lucas's improvement was beyond his comprehension. After that blow, Roderick realized that Lucas had already surpassed him and the difference in their strength was getting increasingly bigger. With a deep, regretful sigh, Roderick turned his head to the referee and said, I admit defeat. It wasn't a death match, so there was no need to continue the battle. The referee was surprised, but he quickly announced the result of the match. Lord Lucas has successfully defended his ranking. The rankings in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard will remain unchanged. As soon as the announcement was made, the crowd erupted into tumultuous applause. The battle might have ended quicker than they had anticipated, but the overwhelming might displayed by both warriors was still lingering in their minds. Lucas looked away from Roderick and turned his head toward the VIP section, where the special guests were seated. It was only a small movement, but the crowd could sense that something shocking was about to happen. Lucas stabbed his sword into the ground and raised his arm to point at a certain individual seated next to the second prince. I challenge you, Andre Thompson. His calm voice echoed thunderously, shaking everyone to their core. Everyone turned their gazes toward the fashionably dressed Andre Thompson. He was the right-hand man of the second prince, a transcendent knight ranked 5th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. He had been in this position for decades and no one had challenged him since he took the spot. The man in question, Andre Thompson, was stunned. He couldn't believe that Lucas would actually challenge him in front of a large crowd. Not to mention that the second prince was just right beside him. His face twitched. With thousands of people in attendance, he couldn't even refuse this challenge. Prince Giovanni also didn't expect this to happen. He felt that Lucas seemed to have changed. It was like he was no longer the person that he once knew. Andre didn't respond immediately. He looked at the second prince to seek his opinion. This could destroy the plans they had painstakingly made, so he couldn't decide things on his own. Sensing his gaze, Prince Giovanni smiled faintly and gave him a nod of approval. It seems like we will be seeing another impressive battle. Andre understood the prince's words, so he didn't hesitate any longer. In that case, I shall accept your challenge. He stood up from his seat and loosened the buttons on his clothes to make himself more comfortable. You are still tired from the battle, so I will give you some time to rest. Andre glanced at Lucas, trying to see through his thoughts, but his scrutinizing gaze was met with the latter's deadpan expression, making him unable to tell what was on the latter's mind. There's no need for that. Lucas shook his head. His response shocked the crowd. Roderick, who was still on the platform, couldn't believe his ears. Lucas was speaking to Andre Thompson, a powerful warrior who only had a few rivals in the entire empire, but it seemed like he didn't care about this. This was also an indirect insult to him since he had just fought with Lucas. It was like saying that Lucas didn't put much effort into defeating him. Roderick wanted to say something, but he didn't want to appear like a sore loser, so he could only walk down from the platform with a gloomy face. On the other hand, Andre raised an eyebrow. Is he intentionally provoking me? He couldn't tell whether Lucas was deliberately provoking him or not. It looks like you are quite confident in your ability, Lord Lucas. Andre jumped down from the spectator's seat. Whoosh. Upon landing on the ground, he walked toward the platform under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Everyone watched the scene with great enthusiasm, eager to witness another epic battle. When he stepped onto the stage, Andre opened his mouth once more and spoke. Since we already know the rules, why don't we start this fight now? Hearing this, the referee immediately left the platform. You don't have any equipment on you, so I will fight you barehanded. Lucas threw aside his shield and his sword. He also removed his armor and tossed it off the platform. Andre Thompson frowned at his words. He was a martial arts expert and his expertise was in close combat. This means that Lucas was challenging him in his field of expertise. Chapter 169, The Crown Prince, Leonard Exler Estania. The crowd was stoked when they realized this would be a martial arts battle. A contest of raw power between two warriors in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard was unheard of. It might have happened unofficially, but there were no reports of it being done in public. The two transcendents ignored the crowd's enthusiastic response as they silently gauged each other's power. The battle had already begun, but no one seemed to have the intention to make the first move. It was as if they were wary of each other's power. As the seconds ticked by, the tension also became increasingly apparent. Amidst the loud cheers of the audience, the two transcendents suddenly moved at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! Both men swung their fists without any superficial techniques. In the next moment, a fearsome bang echoed as their fists clashed in midair. Bang! The veins on Lucas's arm protruded as he imbued more mana into his fist. He is indeed different. Lucas thought to himself when he felt the force behind Andre's punch. It was like an unstoppable meteorite that struck the planet with power that could destroy anything in its path. Contrary to the calmness on his face, Andre was inwardly shocked. He had trained his punches and kicks for decades. Although there was no technique added to this punch, this contained the years of his relentless efforts in perfecting this simple move. No one had come out unscathed after receiving his punch. At least not until this very moment. The man in front of him looked completely unharmed and he was even able to compete with him equally. Lucas Silversword, we have underestimated you. The two transcendents retreated after that initial clash. Andre furrowed his eyebrows and he decided to no longer hold back. "Lucas, you have become more powerful, so I won't hold my punches anymore." As soon as he said those words, his aura completely changed. A heavy and ferocious pressure descended upon Lucas's body as Andre released his aura. Facing this fearsome power, Lucas also let loose his mana, enveloping his whole body like a protective membrane. The pressure on his body immediately disappeared. Suddenly, he felt an overpowering killing intent, momentarily freezing him in place. Subsequently, Andre appeared in front of him, unleashing a devastating kick aimed at his head. Whoosh! The air seemed to split from his attack. "You are not the only one who learned martial arts." Thinking about this, Lucas performed a spinning kick which brought forth a tremendous amount of force. Bang! The two transcendents exchanged a series of blows, causing shockwaves with every collision. The spectators could hardly open their eyes due to the fearsome winds created because of their battle. At the VIP section, the special guests watched the battle with bated breath. Insane. Their punches and kicks could kill an elite knight. "I think this is getting dangerous. One of them could end up dead if this fight continues." Prince Giovanni frowned. Lucas was more powerful than he had imagined. "I was wrong. Lucas isn't just a northern tiger. He is a wild northern tiger. But this makes things more fun. Taming a wild tiger is more exciting." While he was immersed in his thoughts, he suddenly heard a series of footsteps behind him. He subconsciously turned his head and saw someone that made his eyes turn cold. Leonard. Prince Giovanni took a deep breath as he stared at this person. He didn't even bother to conceal the look of spite on his face. Leonard Exler Astania, the crown prince of the empire, and the man who would one day sit in the jeweled throne. The crown prince had long, wavy golden hair that extended to his shoulders. His ocean blue eyes exuded dignity befitting someone with imperial bloodline. He wasn't tall or muscular like the second prince. He had a slender physique similar to that of scholars untrained in combat. However, hidden in this slim body was a power that only a few had ever reached, the realm of elite knights. As if sensing his gaze, Leonard looked over in his direction and let out a faint smile. When the people in the VIP section discovered that it was the crown prince, they immediately rose to their feet and greeted him respectfully. "Greetings, Your Highness." Unlike the second prince who everyone was fearful of, everyone was genuinely respectful toward the crown prince. "It is good to see you, everyone. It looks like there is something fun to watch here." The crown prince displayed his graceful bearing, which was the exact opposite of his younger brother's temperament. Looking at his elder brother who was surrounded by the nobility, Prince Giovanni snorted in his heart. "That hypocritical bastard. I really hate seeing that annoying sissy bastard." He took his eyes away from the crown prince and focused his attention on the battle. "Oh my, isn't that Lord Andre down there?" Leonard's voice drifted into his ears, making him even more irritated. Prince Giovanni didn't want to lash out in public, so he chose to ignore the crown prince who had intentionally sat next to him. The nobles who were seated in the VIP section became nervous. They could only pray that these two wouldn't get into conflict. "I'm surprised that Lord Lucas can fight Lord Andre equally in martial arts. No wonder you are interested in him." Prince Leonard rubbed his chin with a thoughtful smile. He knew that his brother's goal was to invite Lucas onto his side, and he was here for that same reason. Prince Giovanni was ticked off by his words. He glanced at the crown prince and frowned. "What are you insinuating?" "Relax." Prince Leonard shrugged as he chuckled, showing an innocent look on his face. "Giovanni, you can't force Lord Lucas to join you. You should let him make the choice himself. Forcing him might only backfire," he added with a teasing tone. Prince Giovanni clenched his fists, and just as he was about to respond, a violent explosion rocked the Colosseum. Boom! Chapter 170, A Special Moment. The spectators gasped. On the stage, the high and mighty Andre Thompson, who everyone thought would win the battle, was now covered in bruises. His fancy clothes had been torn apart, making him look like a mess. On the other hand, Lucas wasn't any better. His upper body was also covered in wounds and blood could be seen trickling down his lips. He is not using his full strength. He has yet to use that move. Lucas thought as he recalled the special move that solidified Andre's position on the leaderboard. It was an unnamed fist technique, but due to its notorious power, people started calling it the Fist of Calamity. Lucas wanted to know whether he could withstand that fist, but he had already accomplished his goal. Furthermore, making Andre unleash that move would only force him to reveal more of his power. Maria had specifically warned him not to use his trump cards. Although he was reluctant to end the fight, he could only let out a helpless sigh. It was a great fight, Lord Andre. He cupped his fists while expressing his respect toward the other party. He then turned his head to the referee and calmly said, "I forfeit." Hearing this, Andre was baffled by his decision. Lucas had fought evenly with him and there was no clear winner between them, so it left a bitter taste in his mouth. "Lord Lucas," he called out. Lucas raised his eyebrows and stopped in his tracks. He glanced at Andre and saw the latter giving him a deep look. He didn't bother to explain himself. He just nodded at Andre and jumped down from the platform. It was only then that the referee had reacted. He leaped onto the platform and announced the results of the match, leaving the crowd confused. Why did Lord Lucas surrender? He doesn't look that injured. Did he sustain internal injuries? Perhaps Lord Lucas sustained a hidden injury that we hadn't seen. That's too bad then. The battle could have ended differently if they had continued. Still, it was an awesome fight. Just look at the state of the platform. It's like a tornado had passed by. The crowd discussed, speculating the real reason behind Lucas's surrender. Meanwhile, in the VIP section, Prince Leonard stared at Lucas's back with a curious smile on his face. Is he afraid of Lord Andre's Fist of Calamity, or is there another underlying reason for his decision? Now I finally understand why His Majesty wanted to get you on his side. Lucas Silversword, you are one enigmatic man. Beside him, Prince Giovanni couldn't sit still any longer. He rose from his seat and turned around with a flick of his sleeve before he left impatiently. He was afraid that his older brother would snatch Lucas from him. Prince Leonard raised an eyebrow as he watched his younger brother leave with quick steps. At this moment, realization suddenly dawned on him. I understand now. Lucas did not just randomly challenge Andre. It was a deliberate move to reveal a portion of his power to the public. Thinking about this, a playful smile hung on his lips. Oh, my dear younger brother, this is not someone that you can tame. He chuckled as he rose to his feet. Let's go. The show is over. Your Highness, what about Lord Lucas? Didn't you say that you want to get him to come to our side? An old man dressed in standard noble attire asked in a low voice. Prince Leonard smiled profoundly at the old man as he shook his head. Lord Tyrone, Lord Lucas has already made a choice. Going after him would be a fruitless endeavor. Hearing the Crown Prince's words, the old man was puzzled. On the 23rd day of March, Alaric came to Rivad with a large entourage bearing valuable gifts. The carriages that carried the gifts were escorted by 100 warriors dressed in ceremonial uniforms. The striking entourage shocked the onlookers and some even followed them out of curiosity, wondering what was about to happen. Isn't that Lord Alaric? What are all those gifts for? Is he going to propose marriage? It seems like it. Alaric noticed the increasing number of people following them, but he ignored them. As they got closer to the estate of House Paxley, he felt inexplicably nervous. I did not think that proposing marriage would actually make me this nervous. He smiled wryly. He had never done this in his past life, so it felt like he was going into unknown territory. Alaric took a deep breath to calm his nerves. My lord, everything will be all right. Just relax. Henry's voice drifted into his ears. Alaric glanced at the old warrior and smiled awkwardly. Am I that obvious? Henry chuckled. Your face says it all. Don't overthink things. Just be your usual self and I assure you that everything will go smoothly. he added. The old man's words reassured him. Thank you, Sir Henry. It's my pleasure, my lord. After half an hour, they finally arrived outside the main gate of House Paxley's estate where a group was already waiting for them. Alaric immediately spotted Hershey in the crowd. She was wearing a white dress with a golden floral design. How beautiful! Alaric subconsciously smiled upon seeing her. The crowd seemed to have vanished from his eyes and the only one he could see was Hershey. In that instant, it was as if time had slowed down. The noise around him disappeared and all he could hear was a beautiful melody that struck a chord in his heart. However, a burst of boisterous laughter broke this special moment. Ha ha ha. Thank you for coming here, Lord Alaric. Alaric glanced at Baron Nathan and forced a smile as he jumped off from his horse. He lowered his head, showing his courtesy to his future father-in-law. Greetings, my lord. I have come here to propose marriage to your daughter. Hearing this, Baron Nathan's smile deepened. Ha ha ha. What a joyous occasion. It looks like my daughter's wish of marrying you will finally be fulfilled soon. The Baron couldn't conceal his joy and he didn't forget to send his friends a smug look. When he heard that Alaric was coming over to propose marriage, he invited his old friends all for the sake of letting them witness this moment. The faces of the Baron's friends twitched when they saw his smug look. Alaric noticed this exchange of glances, but he didn't say anything about it. Nathan Paxley would soon become his father-in-law, so he didn't mind this little pretentious act. My lord, what are you saying in front of everyone? Hershey smiled demurely at her father's words. Oh, my. Silly me. Look at my mouth. Ha ha ha. Baron Nathan laughed heartily. They exchanged polite words before the Baron invited them inside the estate. He brought them to a pavilion right behind the main mansion. We will leave you two here. Us old fogies will only disturb you, so we will take our leave first. Baron Nathan winked at Alaric as he said these words. He then sent his daughter a look of encouragement before he pulled his friends away. I apologize for my father's antics, my lord. He is just enjoying this moment, so I hope you don't mind his behavior. Hershey was a bit embarrassed. Alaric laughed lightly when he heard her words. It is all right. I do not mind it at all. He then found himself at loss for words. The lines that he had memorized before coming here suddenly disappeared from his mind. Oh, no. Just then, he recalled Henry's words. Just be yourself. Thinking about this, Alaric let go of his worries. He looked into Hershey's eyes and smiled. You look beautiful, Hershey. Looking at his radiant smile, Hershey's heart melted. You also look dashing, Alaric. Alaric didn't bother to hide his affection. He offered his hand and asked. Do you know how to dance? As a noble, he had been taught how to dance at a young age. Although the dance steps he had learned when he was young seemed to be a distant memory, these forgotten steps strangely appeared in his mind right at this moment. Hershey didn't expect this question, but she took his hand and hummed in response. Amen. In the next moment, the two started moving. Their graceful steps and movements flowed naturally as if they had been practicing together for a long time. A strong wind blew by, making the flowers surrounding the pavilion look like they were dancing along with the two. After they took the final steps, Alaric took her hands and kneeled while looking at her with eyes filled with love. Hershey, will you marry me? Hershey was frozen in place. She didn't know when it started, but tears started falling down her eyes. With a trembling voice, she nodded. Yes, I will. Alaric smiled and rose to his feet. He wiped away her tears and sealed her lips with a kiss. Chapter 171, Vivian's Secret Affair. In the next few days, news about Alaric and Hershey's upcoming wedding spread across the surrounding cities. It was a union between two of the most powerful houses in the north, so everyone was looking forward to this event. While many were excited about this, certain people felt the exact opposite. One of these was Vivian, Baron Nathan's wife. At this moment, Vivian was drinking alcohol in her room, her face looking incredibly unsightly to behold. That bitch. She angrily threw the glass she was holding at the wall, smashing it into pieces. Her plan to take over House Paxley using her sons had become increasingly difficult. Her youngest son Liam had become a fugitive and was currently in hiding, while her oldest son Theo had become distant from her. This is because of that annoying bitch. Everything fell apart because of her. Vivian's voice shook with anger. She believed that the reason for this series of misfortunes was Hershey. The shaking of her body suddenly stopped as she lifted her head, revealing a look of madness on her face. Should I kill her? The instant she uttered those words, a twisted smile hung on her lips. Why did I not think of doing this before? Vivian's emotionless voice echoed inside the room. She turned her head and saw her reflection in the mirror. Seeing her disheveled appearance, she immediately tidied her hair. Leandro. She called out. Whoosh. A figure suddenly appeared behind her. Vivian stared at the person through the mirror. He was a middle-aged man with handsome facial features wearing leather armor with a steel breastplate. My lady, what are your orders? How many soldiers do we have right now? Vivian asked. The man pondered for a moment before he responded. Initially we had over 100 warriors, but we sent some of them to follow Lord Liam. Now, we only have over 80 warriors. Including me, we have 4 elite knights and 10 knights. The rest are knight apprentices and normal warriors. Vivian combed her hair with a brush as she spoke. If I want to kill that bitch, how many should we send? The handsome middle-aged warrior knew who she was referring to. As someone who had always been at her side, he was aware of her hatred toward Hershey. There's no need to send so many warriors. I alone will be enough, my lady. He answered confidently. Vivian frowned upon hearing this. She turned around and looked at him. No. That will be dangerous. I do not want you to be in danger. Leandro smiled faintly at her words. I'm ready to die for you, my lady. As long as it can make you happy, I will do anything. Leandro. Vivian approached him. The handsome middle-aged warrior took her in his arms and gave her a passionate kiss, greedily sucking her tongue and her lips. After a long while, the two finally separated. Vivian stared into his eyes and said, Send someone else to do the job. I do not want you to take any risk. Leandro nodded as he gently rubbed her back. All right. I will send Austin and a small group of elites for the job. Hearing this, Vivian's face broke into a smile. Austin was one of the elite knights that she had been secretly nurturing for a long time. If it was him, killing Hershey would definitely be an easy task. Leandro suddenly leaned closer to her and whispered. Let's talk about that later. Why don't we continue what we have started? Before she could even respond, she felt a strong pair of hands tugging at her dress, before pulling them apart. Vivian yelped in surprise. Wait. That fat pig might come here. She looked at him with a pleading gaze, but instead of stopping, Leandro removed the final layer that covered her body. Doesn't it excite you? Leandro whispered before he pinned her against the wall with her back facing him. Wait. We really can't do it. A soft moan leaked out of her mouth when she felt a warm object suddenly penetrating her from behind. Pa. 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 Amen. Leandro squeezed her waist as he forcefully slammed her ass repeatedly. Pa. 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 Meanwhile, in another part of Rivad, Alaric went to visit the church with Hershey. Are you sure that Bishop Anton will agree to your request? Hershey asked while looking at Alaric with a hint of worry. Alaric had already told her about the situation, but she was uncertain whether the bishop would accept the request. Alaric smiled at her and replied. Truthfully, I am not sure if he would agree, but since we are already here, let us just go in and try. All right then. The two headed inside the church under the guidance of a deacon. The deacon brought them to the guest room where the bishop was already waiting for them. Do you want to use appraisal on the target? Yes, no. Alaric clicked, yes. Almari Anton, 3-ringed beast soul master, EXP, 151/5000. Potential, C. Integrated monster traits, heal, B, fire spear, B, blink, C. Traits, horseback riding, E, close combat, D, swordsmanship, F, assassination, B. Strength, 142. Stamina, 153. Agility, 307. Vitality, 204. Endurance, 128. Mana, 479. Alaric widened his eyes when he saw the bishop's attributes. What surprised him the most was the old man's incredibly high mana. He had never seen one with such high mana before. Oh, my. To think that the newest couple in the city would actually come to visit me. I'm honored. Bishop Anton warmly greeted them. Thank you for having the time to see us, Your Excellency. Alaric cupped his fists as he smiled. They exchanged pleasantries before the bishop told them to take their seats. So why did you come to visit me? Are you here to invite me to officiate your wedding? The bishop smiled lightly while staring at the young couple. That's right. It will be our honor to have you at our wedding. Chapter 172, Greenwood Kingdom. Ha ha ha. Then this old man will clear his schedule and make sure to attend your wedding. The bishop laughed heartily. He had a good impression of this young man, so he didn't mind doing him this favor. That will be great. Alaric slapped his thigh and laughed joyfully. They chatted some more about this topic before Alaric found the opportunity to discuss another objective. Your Excellency, there is actually one more thing that I would like your help with. Alaric's face suddenly turned serious. Sensing the abrupt change in his tone, the bishop furrowed his eyebrows. Go on. I'm listening. Alaric took a deep breath before he spoke. Your Excellency, can you engrave an ability on my sword? The bishop became silent. Alaric and Hershey patiently waited for him to speak. After a few minutes of silence, the old man finally opened his mouth. Sigh. I really want to help, Lord Alaric, but I am restricted by the sacred covenant. He shook his head with a regretful smile. I see. I apologize for making you feel uncomfortable, Your Excellency. Alaric felt that it was a pity, but he knew that he couldn't force the matter. No, it's all right. You don't need to apologize. The bishop waved his hand with a kind smile. Now that he knew that it was impossible to get his help, Alaric tactfully changed the topic. Deep inside the enchanted woodlands there existed an obscure place untouched by humanity. It was a small elven kingdom that housed over 100,000 elves, the Greenwood Kingdom. On this day, inside the biggest treehouse, an important meeting was being held between the most important members of the Elven Kingdom. One of the elves in attendance was the princess, Ivana Greenwood. Other than her, 11 more elves had gathered. Your Majesty, the situation is dire. We need to stop those filthy creatures from destroying the forest. A particularly robust elf expressed his opinion, the fury in his voice was evident. Some of the elves in attendance nodded in agreement. At this moment, the handsome elf with snow-white hair spoke. I understand your anger, Dahan. I'm also furious, but if we take up arms and fight them, there could be an all-out war between our kingdom and the goblins. They might be divided right now, but if a common enemy attacks them, those scattered goblin tribes might gather under one banner. He added. Everyone became silent at his words. This was what they were worried about. Recently, a large goblin colony composed of over 20,000 goblins had moved near their territory. To build their new nest, the goblin colony decided to burn a large part of the forest, and a portion of this forest happened to be part of Greenwood Kingdom's territory. Your Majesty, if I may speak. Ivana suddenly opened her mouth. The handsome elf nodded and gestured for her to continue. Everyone turned their heads to Ivana, curious to know what she was about to say. Sensing everyone's eyes on her, Ivana remained calm. I don't think those goblins decided to move near our territory on a whim. There is a high possibility that they are aware of the existence of the mana spring. As soon as she said those words, everyone's faces suddenly turned serious. The mana spring that she was talking about was groundwater that flowed to the surface. However, the special thing about this groundwater was its purity and the dense mana it possessed. The energy contained inside a glass of water from this mana spring was equivalent to the energy within a fatal-grade beast soul crystal. Most importantly, the mana spring could produce 100 glasses every year. That could be more troublesome. If those goblins are indeed aware of the mana spring, they would definitely use every means possible to get their hands on it. The robust elf named Dahan frowned. Ivana nodded. I agree with Elder Dahan. Your Majesty, we must not hesitate anymore. We need to do something about this. I know that you don't want any bloodshed, but sometimes, it is necessary to fight. The handsome elf stared deeply at his daughter. After half a minute of silence, he said. The goblin settlement has 20,000 goblins and almost half of them can fight. On the other hand, our kingdom only has 20,000 soldiers. He paused and scanned everyone's faces before he continued. If we fight them, there will be immense casualties on our side. Even if we win, our military power will take a huge loss and we will become easy targets for other forces. Ivana seemed to have expected this response. I have a solution for that, Your Majesty. You do? The Elven King, Garandel Greenwood, stared at her in surprise. Ivana nodded. We can ask for outside assistance. The faces of some high elves turned cold upon hearing this. Your Highness, the outside help that you are talking about. They are not humans, right? An old elf with long golden hair asked. Elder Egris, I understand your hatred toward humans, but not all humans are as bad as you think. Ivana didn't like this particular high elf. The high elf named Egris scoffed at her words. You have been fooled, Your Highness. I know that you were saved by humans, but there could be a hidden motive behind their actions. Perhaps dash. Enough. I won't allow you to speak ill of my benefactors. Ivana slammed her hand on the table. Everyone was surprised by her reaction. No one expected her to openly oppose Egris for the sake of some humans. Egris's expression darkened. Your Highness, I'm saying this for your sake. The human heart is unpredictable. He then stood up and stormed out of the meeting room. 5 more high elves followed him, leaving the room with only 7 elves. After they left, the Elven King sighed. Can we really trust them? He trusted his daughter's judgment, so he was willing to hear her out. I assure you that he is trustworthy, Ivana responded confidently. Chapter 173, Shift of Power in River Wake. After the meeting, Garandel told his daughter to stay. Is there something you want to tell me, Your Majesty? Ivana expressionlessly glanced at her father. Seeing her indifferent face, Garandel sighed with a complicated look. The human you were talking about earlier, tell me more about him. He knew Ivana was one of the elves who didn't like humans. She had a strong aversion toward them, so he was curious about what kind of person could change her perspective. Hearing this, Ivana's expression eased up. She looked at her father and spoke in a mild tone. His name is Alaric Silversword. He is the heir of house. As he listened to his daughter's words, he sensed a different kind of emotion in her voice. She also had a faint smile on her face as she narrated her experience. As someone who had lived for more than 200 years, Garandel could tell that his daughter was in love, with a human at that. Knowing that someone had already captured his daughter's heart, he felt a bit sour. Not to mention that this man was a human. Is his family really as strong as you say? He couldn't believe it when she told him that they had a few transcendents. Even their Greenwood kingdom didn't have many experts at this level. Ivana raised an eyebrow. I have seen them in person. If you don't believe me, you can ask Sir Neo. As she said those words, she pointed at the elf who was standing quietly behind her. Garendel looked at Neo and saw him nodding his head, confirming her words. I know about Estania, but I haven't heard of this house Silversword. I should send someone to look into it. He thought. If there is nothing else, then please excuse me. Ivana stood up and turned around. However, before she could leave, Garendel's voice drifted into her ears. Do you still blame me for your mother's death? The Elven King's voice choked with sadness and regret. Ivana stopped in her tracks, but she didn't look back. With a cold voice, she replied. I will take my leave now, Your Majesty. After saying those words, she left without hesitation. Neo bowed to the Elven King before he chased after Ivana. Garendel scanned the empty room and slumped into his seat with a weary look. He then looked at the portrait of an elf couple pasted on the wall. It was a portrait of him and his wife, the late Queen of the Greenwood Kingdom. My wife, your incapable husband is tired. I can't protect our kingdom and even our daughter hates me. I wish you were here. If it was you, I'm sure you could come up with a better solution. In Riverwake, there was a major shift of power in the underground factions. This was because the leader of the largest underground organization was killed. In the past few weeks, numerous skirmishes have occurred between these underground forces. However, the biggest winner of them all was a recently established mercenary group helmed by a mysterious young man. No one knew his name. It was like he had appeared out of nowhere. At this moment, in the slums of the city, there was a bloody battle inside the underground fighting ring that was once owned by a man named Dexter. On one side was a group of men wielding axes. They were like a pack of hyenas, recklessly swinging their axes without any technique. On the other side was a group with fewer numbers, but despite the disadvantage, they were able to overwhelm their opponents using clever tactics and battle formations. Maintain the formation. They will soon exhaust themselves, shouted Liam, who was safely positioned at the rear. Yes, boss. His subordinates responded upon hearing his words. Liam had brought them successive victories, so they had full trust in him. He had trained them in employing battle formations which helped them win even with overwhelming odds. Liam watched the scene with a cold smile. Once we defeat these bastards, the underworld of Riverwake will be ours. Just as he thought of this, a change suddenly occurred. An old man holding a two-handed battle axe forced his way through their battle formation. He was like a beast, rampaging with unstoppable momentum. It's him. Old Man Woodcutter. Liam narrowed his eyes when he saw this old man. Even though he was quite a distance away, he could still feel the oppressive aura of the old man. A peak elite knight is indeed different. Liam turned his head to the person standing next to him. It was a bald middle-aged man with a long scar on his neck. This person was the strongest warrior sent by his mother during his escape, a peak elite knight. Sir Elton, I need you to stop that old man, Liam instructed with a respectful tone. Although they shared a master-servant relationship, Liam was a bit afraid of this warrior. He was a cruel, vicious, and ruthless man. Elton nodded indifferently. Without saying a word, he drew his sword and charged toward the old man without an ounce of hesitation. Old Man Woodcutter was quick to notice his presence. A peak elite knight? The old man was flabbergasted. He thought that only the Night Owl mercenary group had an expert at this level. It never crossed his mind that a newly established mercenary group would have someone like this in their midst. In the next moment, Elton lunged at the old man and swung his sword. Whoosh! Old Man Woodcutter snorted and lifted his axe, causing the veins in his arms to protrude. Clang! A loud clang echoed when their weapons collided. No one dared to get closer to them, afraid that they would be caught in the clash between the two powerful warriors. A huge space was created for the two, giving them enough room to move around. This man is faster than me. Old Man Woodcutter frowned when he realized the huge difference in their agility. If he wasn't careful, his opponent could end his life with a single strike. Clang! 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 The two elite knights exchanged blow after blow, but after several minutes, there was still no clear sign of who would win the fight. It was a close fight. Elton was fast and skilled, while Old Man Woodcutter was strong and fearless. As the battle dragged on, Elton revealed an annoyed expression. Old Man Woodcutter seemed to have noticed this. With a disdainful smile, he shouted, "You are quite capable. It will be a pity if you continue working under that snot-nosed brat. Why don't you work with me instead? We can conquer this city together." Elton's face twitched and there was a slight opening in his defense. The old man took the opportunity to attack. He feinted a swing and when Elton took the bait, he released a sweep kick. "Got you." The old man laughed brazenly as he smashed his axe toward Elton, who had awkwardly fallen to the ground. Bang! What? Old Man Woodcutter widened his eyes. Elton actually managed to evade his axe's blade in the nick of time. KK. After somehow evading that fatal blow, Elton stabbed his sword into the old man's shoulder. It was aimed at the latter's heart, but Old Man Woodcutter managed to twist his body. Damn! The old man cursed under his breath after having his shoulder pierced with a sword. He ignored the pain and lifted his axe. However, when he was about to end Elton's life, he saw someone pointing a crossbow at him. "It's nice to meet you, Old Man Woodcutter." Liam grinned while aiming his crossbow at the old man's head. The old man frowned and stared deeply at him. "You must be the rumored leader of this mercenary group. You are a lot younger than I thought." "Oh, my. I'm flattered. To think that the famous Old Man Woodcutter actually knows of my existence. It feels wonderful." Liam chuckled with a teasing voice. After saying this, his smile disappeared. "Throw your axe and I will give you a chance to live." Old Man Woodcutter gnashed his teeth in anger. "Just kill me, but even if I die, I will take this man with me to hell." "Relax. We can talk this out. How about telling your men to stop so we can discuss things?" Liam squinted his eyes. He was ready to shoot his crossbow if the old man would show any sign of attacking Elton. "I can't let Elton be killed here. He is still useful." Old Man Woodcutter hesitated for a moment. "Let's see what this brat is up to," he thought to himself as he lowered his axe. He then took a deep breath and shouted, "Members of my axe gang, stop at once." His booming voice echoed across the underground fighting ring, momentarily stunning everyone. The members of the axe gang were confused, but they followed his command. Seeing this, Liam smirked. Chapter 174, Prince Giovanni's Anger. Inside a private room in one of the most popular restaurants in the capital, the second prince was having a meal with Lucas. The two sat opposite each other, eating and enjoying their food. Lucas took a cloth from his inner pocket to wipe off the grease on his lips. He then looked at the second prince, who was still busy with his food, and spoke calmly. "Your Highness, you can speak freely with me. I know you didn't just invite me for a meal." Prince Giovanni put down the cutlery. "One moment," he uttered. He then wiped off the oil stains on his mouth with a white cloth with golden embroidery. After cleaning himself, he cleared his throat and spoke. "Lord Lucas, I have always admired your commitment to defending the northern borders of Estania." The prince spoke a long paragraph of flattery and praise, but this only made Lucas annoyed. If he wasn't of imperial bloodline, he would have left without saying a word. The north is always subjected to attacks, so there is a high demand for equipment and weapons. The weather there is also terrible, so only a small percentage of the crops can survive. I am really saddened by the rough conditions that our northern residents have to experience all year round, so I thought of sending some supplies in hopes that it would somehow alleviate the burden on the northern lords. Prince Giovanni spoke with a heavy sigh. If it was someone else, they might be fooled by his generosity, but Lucas was already aware of what kind of person the second prince was. He was a tyrant who oppressed the poor, and he was the kind of man who wouldn't hesitate to betray someone all for the sake of fulfilling his ambitions. That will be great, Your Highness, but I think we should discuss this with all the northern lords present. I am but one of the many lords in the north. I do not represent all of them, replied Lucas while shaking his head. What if I can make you the representative of the north? Prince Giovanni smiled. This had always worked during his negotiations with the other lords. He usually promised them big rewards in exchange for working under him. When faced with the promised land, titles, and other rewards, they all ended up bending the knee. Lucas stared deeply at the arrogant man in front of him. He wasn't even the emperor yet, but he was acting like he had full control of Estania. In a cold voice, he responded. What makes you think that you can give me the entire north? Sensing the coldness in his tone, Prince Giovanni narrowed his eyes. I think there is a misunderstanding somewhere, Lord Lucas. He forced a smile, thinking that it was probably just Lucas testing him. Before he could speak further, Lucas raised his hand. I already knew that you planned to recruit me. I came here with the hope that you could somehow convince me, but what I heard from you disappointed me. He then stood up and said. I enjoyed the meal, Your Highness. Please excuse me. Without hesitation, Lucas turned around and left, leaving behind a dumbfounded Prince Giovanni. Did he just leave after cutting me off? Some damn baron from the northern countryside? Prince Giovanni's expression darkened the more he thought about it. I gave you face because you have some strength, but that does not mean that I am afraid of you. In his anger, Prince Giovanni slammed his fist on the table. Bang! Lucas Silversword. One day, you will have to pay for this. A powerful aura leaked out from his body. If someone was here, they would have sensed the overwhelming energy he exuded. However, the most surprising thing was the second prince's aura. He had the aura of transcendence. On the 31st of March, Alaric returned to North Pine Town with Hershey after Bishop Anton had rejected their request. Inside the carriage on their way to the estate, Hershey grabbed Alaric's hand. Do not worry about it. I am sure that we will find someone who will engrave an ability on your sword. For now, we should think of your coming birthday. 2 days from now, Alaric would celebrate his 19th birthday. He would have forgotten about this if she hadn't mentioned it. Thinking about this, Alaric smiled at her. You are right. There is plenty of time to look for a beast soul warrior. Now that she had mentioned his coming birthday celebration, the topic shifted. When they arrived at the estate, they saw Maria and a team of warriors waiting for them at the gates. Let us go. You should greet your mother-in-law, Alaric said in a teasing voice. The two stepped out of the carriage to greet Maria. While Hershey and his mother were exchanging polite words, Alaric noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was the young boy he had met after the fallen warriors were buried in Mount Tedra. What was his name again? Oh, right. He is Wolf, the son of Jerry. It was then that he remembered his conversation with the boy. He must have waited a while for me, he thought. Alaric walked toward the young boy while waving his hand. Wolf, son of Jerry. I guess that you have finally gotten permission from your mother. He smiled. The young boy was a bit flustered when he sensed everyone staring at him. He took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, my lord. I have already spoken with my mother and she has agreed with my decision. Good. If you have already thought it through, then you can follow me. I will bring you to someone who will train you to become a knight. Alaric tapped the boy's shoulder with an encouraging look. Wolf's potential was far greater than most of his subordinates. With proper guidance, he might even surpass those who had trained earlier than him. Can I really become a knight, my lord? Wolf clenched his fists. Alaric did not doubt this. He nodded as he replied. I have faith in your talent, Wolf. I am sure that you will become a knight one day. He then shrugged and added with a chuckle. Who knows? Maybe you will be one of those few people who will become future powerhouses. Everyone was surprised when they heard him praising the young man. Alaric had never shown much interest in a young talent before. He had visited the training ground to inspect the progress of the newbies' training, but they had never seen him display this kind of enthusiasm to a prospective talent. Everyone became more curious about the young man. They all wondered what was so special about him. After some small talk, Maria brought Hershey inside the main mansion to discuss the final preparations for Alaric's birthday. Meanwhile, Alaric brought Wolf to the training ground and introduced him to the instructor and the newbies. The last batch of newbies had already graduated from their training. This time, there were only a few of them, just a little more than 20 trainees. Alaric gave Wolf a few more words of encouragement before he headed straight to the smithy. By now, Sir Goran should have already completed my sword. It is just a pity that the bishop has rejected my request. He was still feeling regretful about the rejection, but there was nothing he could do. The man was restricted by the sacred covenant. When he entered the smithy, he felt the sudden increase in the temperature, but he was already used to it. By the time he arrived at Goran's workshop, he saw the latter polishing the blade of a short sword. Goran raised his head when he heard someone's footsteps. My lord. He immediately put down the sword to greet him. Alaric waved his hand and kept his eyes on the short sword. It had a white blade with an intricate dragon head carving on its handle. With one look, he could tell that it was an impressive sword. Sir Goran, is that my sword? He asked. Goran nodded. Yes, my lord. I have completed the sword a few days ago. As he said those words, he grabbed the sword and handed it to Alaric. It is cold. Alaric raised an eyebrow when he felt the cold handle. He then touched the blade and was even more surprised. It is like I am touching snow. The cold property on the sword is because of the cold iron. The mithril also enhanced the coldness because of. Goran's explanation fell on deaf ears. Alaric was too focused on the notification that popped up out of nowhere. Do you want to use the equipment upgrade card on the selected item? Yes, no. He still had the equipment upgrade card that he got from the last mission. Alaric had the urge to click yes, but he felt that he would get a surprise if he waited a bit more. After some thought, he clicked no. Chapter 175, Improvement in the Dual-Wielding Sword Style. Too bad I could not invite a Beast Soul Warrior to engrave it with an ability. Alaric sighed with regret. My lord, I also made a scabbard for it using the remaining cold iron and some of the spare materials I had. You were gone for quite a while, so I also asked a friend of mine to paint a design on it. Goran handed him a white scabbard with a golden dragon painting. Alaric was pleased. The scabbard was made of cold iron and some rare metals, so it wouldn't easily break, and the aesthetic painting was a bonus. Thank you for your efforts in creating this sword, Sir Goran, but we might have to wait for some time before we can find a Beast Soul Warrior to engrave it with an ability. Sir Goran took a deep breath as he nodded. I understand, my lord. He knew how difficult it was to find a suitable Beast Soul Warrior. After all, each Beast Soul Warrior had different integrated traits, and those abilities might not fit well with the sword and the wielder. I will get someone to send you the rewards I promised. Alaric bid him farewell and left with his custom-made sword. He couldn't wait to test it out together with his rare steel sword. On his way to the training ground, Alaric tried to come up with a name for the sword. He felt that it deserved a fitting name. Snow White Sword? No, that sounds too girly. Pristine White Sword? It still does not sound right. He came up with more than 10 names, but not a single one perfectly described the sword, so he temporarily discarded the idea of giving it a name. When he arrived at the training ground, he realized that the trainees were no longer there. The instructor probably brought them somewhere for some physical training. For a warrior to become a knight, they needed to build a body capable of withstanding and holding mana. Otherwise, they would easily break and succumb to mana-related damage. Alaric unsheathed his rare steel sword and the newly crafted short sword. Based on aesthetic design, the rare steel sword looked completely ordinary compared to the other. After admiring his swords for a while, Alaric started testing the compatibility of the two swords. One thing I noticed after dual wielding for some time, using 2 swords of the same length restricted my movement. Sometimes, the balance felt off, so I had to use weird maneuvers to compensate for the lack of balance. This was also the reason he asked for a short sword. In the next moment, Alaric finally moved. Whoosh! 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 I see. I can use the short sword for defense. Because of his SSS-Rank swordsmanship trait, he managed to incorporate what he had learned at a fast rate and improve his new sword style. Whoosh! 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 Not bad. I think this new style is faster and more efficient. I can easily react to any situation because the balance feels better. Alaric smiled. I should go and help them prepare for the celebration. Deep within the enchanted woodlands, inside the largest treehouse in the Greenwood Kingdom. Your Majesty, the goblins are gathering their army. Our scouts also discovered that the colony is trying to unite the scattered goblin tribes. Garendel was shaken by this report. Last time, they only suspected that the goblin colony was planning to attack. It seems like Ivana is right. The goblin colony is aiming for the Mana Spring. Garendel furrowed his eyebrows as he leaned on his chair. He let out a deep, heavy sigh as he looked at the high elf who had given the report. It was Elder Dahan, one of the highest-ranking elves in the kingdom. Elder Dahan, are the warriors ready? He asked. Elder Dahan nodded with a grim look. Yes, Your Majesty. Our elven army is ready to face those goblins. We are only waiting for your orders. Garendel rubbed the bridge of his nose as he closed his eyes. He still couldn't bear to decide, but he knew that it must be done. Where is the princess? He asked in a low voice. Elder Dahan thought for a moment before he replied. Her Highness left with her group a few days ago. They took a detour to avoid the goblin scouts, so it might take them a long time before they reached the borders of Estania. He knew that the Elven King was worried about his daughter's safety, so he added. Do not worry about Her Highness, Your Majesty. Elder Neo is with her. Even if they encounter danger, I am sure that they will be fine. Neo was a 3-ringed beast soul master. In their Greenwood Kingdom, his strength was among the top few. Garendel felt more at ease upon hearing this. You are right. With Elder Neo at her side, Ivana will be safe. He then stood up, his expression turning serious. Bring the elven commanders here. We will discuss how we should deal with those goblins. Hearing this, Elder Dahan nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. Somewhere in the enchanted woodlands, a group of hooded individuals were hiding behind the bushes while observing the movements of the goblins up ahead. How many goblin warriors do they have? Ivana asked in a whispering voice. They have over 50 goblin warriors and 5 hobgoblins. Based on their numbers and the structure of their camp, this is probably an outpost. Neo responded. Ivana frowned. Attacking this outpost might alert the colony and disrupt our plan. We should make another detour. Ivana thought deeply before she made a decision. Let us take a detour. Killing them is not worth it. Upon hearing her words, Neo nodded and made a hand gesture to the elven warriors behind them. Ivana left with her small team and disappeared without making a sound. This wasn't the first goblin outpost they had encountered since they left the kingdom. The fact that there were many scattered outposts all around the kingdom means that the goblin colony was about to attack them. This gave Ivana a sense of urgency. Chapter 176, Alaric's Birthday Celebration. In the capital, news about the success of the orc subjugation finally spread, but what made everyone even more interested was the appearance of the new transcendents in House Silversword. Galliner, Warwick, and William. These names became famous overnight, and everyone could already predict the great changes that would happen on the Estanian Dragon leaderboard with the emergence of these men. At this moment, inside a mansion in the inner parts of Cadera. Your Highness, are we really not going to do anything about Lucas? The strength of his House Silversword is no longer something that we can just ignore, said Tyrone, the Marquis who had sworn allegiance to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince, Leonard Exler Estania, narrowed his eyes as he looked at the scenery beneath the hill through his window. So this is where his confidence comes from. He has 3 transcendent knights under him, and based on the reports, those 3 are not ordinary warriors either. Prince Leonard muttered. He didn't think much of House Silversword since there was only Lucas who had some strength, but it was different now. House Silversword's strength had exceeded his expectations, and it could now compare to his and his younger brother's factions. Your Highness, how about I go there to check their opinion on the succession for the throne? The old Marquis was nervous. House Silversword was already powerful enough to tilt the fragile balance between the 2 princes' factions. Whichever faction he joined would have the advantage in the coming succession battle. Prince Leonard turned around and asked. Where is Lord Lucas right now? According to my subordinates, they saw him leave Cadera late last night. If we send someone to go after him, they might still catch up with him. The old man replied. The Crown Prince rubbed his chin. Hold on. The unexpected challenge, and now, this orc subjugation. I do not think these 2 are just coincidences. Why do I feel that this was deliberately done? The more he thought about it, the more he became convinced that it was a carefully crafted plan. Lord Lucas. House Silversword. What a brilliant strategy. Lord Tyrone, it seems like you need to visit the north soon. I heard that it will be the birthday of Lord Lucas's son in 2 days. Although we cannot make it to the celebration, we can still send him some gifts. If I cannot make you join our side, then I will make friends with you. Prince Leonard thought to himself. Yes, Your Highness. I will prepare a suitable gift for his son. The old Marquis saluted. 2 days later, in North Pine Town, the town was in a festive mood. This was because today was the 19th birthday of Alaric Silversword, the heir of House Silversword. The streets were filled with hanging banners, signifying the importance of this event to the residents. Alaric wasn't just a noble heir to them. He was a great warrior who had led his army in protecting the northern borders from monsters. Droves of carriages flooded the roads of the town, making their way to House Silversword's estate. At this moment, inside the banquet hall, Alaric was busy entertaining the guests who had arrived to celebrate his birthday. Thank you for coming here, Lord Argus. Alaric greeted the old man who was dressed in formal clothes. He didn't come here alone. Behind the old man were some northern lords, including Smith Heinrich, who hadn't fully recovered from his injuries. My lords, thank you for coming here. Alaric smiled at them. Lord Smith, you should not have come. Your recovery is more important than this celebration. Alaric sighed with a look of reproach. Smith Heinrich chuckled and waved his hand. How could I miss your birthday celebration, my lord? These are just minor injuries. There is no need to fret over them. The old Baron, Argus, scoffed at his words. He then tapped Smith Heinrich's shoulder, making the latter grimace. Look at you acting tough. Agu. Be careful, Lord Argus. Smith Heinrich hissed as he looked at the old man. The 2 had gotten closer after the orc subjugation. When Smith Heinrich heard that it was the old Baron who had saved him and his son from being devoured by the orcs, he was very grateful. The rest of the northern lords laughed upon seeing this. Alaric also smiled. Let me take you inside, my lords. We have invited the most famous performers in the north to share their talents. I am sure that you will love their performances. He chatted with them as he brought them inside the venue. By the way, Lord Smith, where is Lord Dillon? Alaric searched for Dillon in the group, but he was nowhere to be found. Smith Heinrich snorted when he mentioned this. I beat him up when I heard about what he did during the battle. He should be resting by now in Redunia. Alaric was speechless, but he didn't disagree with how Smith Heinrich handled the situation. Dillon abandoned his squad and placed himself in danger because of personal reasons. If it was someone else, they would have received severe punishment. He was lucky that his father had only beaten him up. Let us not talk about that stupid son of mine, my lord. Today is your 19th birthday. Who would have thought that the man who led us in that battle was not even 20? Smith Heinrich smiled wryly. The Northern Lords nodded in agreement. Alaric was already an elite knight, and he had even fought toe-to-toe with powerful orc lords, which few elite knights could do. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it if someone told them about it. You flatter me, my lord. Alaric shook his head. There are plenty of powerhouses outside the Empire. Compared to them, my puny strength is not even worth mentioning. Beyond the Empire, there were hundreds, if not thousands of bigger and more powerful nations. He wasn't arrogant enough to think that he was unrivaled in the entire continent. Perhaps he was strong by Estanian standards, but he knew that the continent was vast and there existed more powerful men and women. Chapter 177, Friendly Duels Between the Knight Apprentices. More and more guests arrived to join the celebration. The Northern Lords who didn't participate in the orc subjugation even came to flatter him, hoping that House Silversword wouldn't alienate them. They experienced major financial losses after House Silversword had cut off their supply of metal ores and other raw materials. It was then that they finally realized how big of a mistake they had made. Facing these shameless people, Alaric only responded half-heartedly before he excused himself from them. A few hours later, one of the most anticipated parts of the celebration, the friendly duels, began. This had already become a tradition in the north, and it was a common segment in every important event. This time, only knight apprentices were allowed to participate, so most of them were young warriors below the age of 30. Alaric sent the 3 best young warriors from the last batch of trainees to represent House Silversword. To prevent serious injuries, the participants were only allowed to use wooden weapons. My lord, I think it's overkill to send those 3. We could have sent Mark or someone else instead of them. Rigor whispered after Alaric decided to send Rasmus, Aaliyah, and Renanti. He was the main instructor of the last batch of trainees, so he had a clear understanding of their abilities. Alaric smiled lightly at him and replied, "Don't you want to see them show off their might in front of this crowd?" Rigor could only smile wryly at his response. Even Mark could beat those guys. If it's those 3, I think it won't be a friendly duel anymore, but a one-sided beating. He helplessly shook his head. Alaric shrugged and chuckled in amusement. Just relax and let them have fun. Rigor no longer said anything and turned his attention to the ongoing duel. The guests sent their best representatives for the friendly duel. Some of the Northern Lords even sent their children. One of them was Theo, the heir apparent of House Paxley. He was also the crowd favorite since he was the most famous among the participants. Although he was not a prodigy like Alaric, he was still a rare genius in the north. As the friendly duels continued, the crowd started to take notice of the 3 young warriors sent by House Silversword. This was because they all won in an overwhelming fashion. Most of their fights ended in just a single move. This was especially true for the girl named Aaliyah. She was like a tigress, fierce and unstoppable. All her battles ended with her opponents being ruthlessly beaten in one move. The most shocking thing was that she hadn't even used her weapon. Who is that girl? Man, she's beautiful, but she's scary when she fights. I heard that she is one of the trainees who has graduated from the rigorous program of House Silversword. If not for those scars on her face, she would have been a real beauty. What a pity. The spectators discussed as they watched Aaliyah's performance with great enthusiasm. Those 2 guys from House Silversword are also doing great. They ended their battles within 3 moves. Just how did they train those kids? They don't look old, but they fight like they have years of experience. Other than the 3 of them, there were also a few participants who displayed superior skills compared to the rest. Theo was one of them. His swordsmanship was impressive. Although he focused heavily on being flashy, he was able to defeat his opponents with ease. Not bad. With more practical experience, he will be forced to remove those flashy tricks. Alaric thought to himself. Theo has trained really hard for this day. He wanted to become a knight, but he still fell short in the end. Remarked Hershey, who was standing beside Alaric. Is that so? No wonder his skills have improved. Alaric looked at Theo and used his appraisal trait on him. Theo Paxley, Knight Apprentice, EXP, 88/100. Potential, D. Traits, Horseback Riding, F. Swordsmanship, E. Close Combat, F. Archery, E. Hunting, F. Business Management, E. Strength, 19. Stamina, 18. Agility, 17. Endurance, 18. Vitality, 18. Mana, 5. He is indeed close to becoming a knight. He just needs a little bit more physical training and exposure to mana. Theo was still a knight apprentice, so he couldn't use herbs like the dragon tail fern that had high levels of mana. Without sufficient physical strength to handle mana, his body wouldn't be able to handle the energy, and he might even suffer a backlash if he forced himself to absorb those kinds of herbs. However, there were tonics that could help with increasing muscle growth and even improve the physical condition of the body. The only issue is that using these tonics was extremely painful, and not everyone could handle this pain. In his past life, Alaric also used these tonics to improve his physical condition. Suddenly, he heard the crowd cheering excitedly. The reason for this excitement was that Theo would be fighting Rasmus in his next match. Furthermore, Aaliyah's opponent was another crowd favorite, Renanti. Only these 4 young warriors remained, and everyone was eager to know who would proceed to the final match. I am sorry, brother-in-law. It seems like you are not destined to win this friendly duel. Even without using his appraisal trait, he knew that Rasmus was way stronger than Theo. The former had used tonics since he began his physical training, and he had also participated in numerous practical combat missions. He also focused on improving his battle skills. Unlike Theo, who had to handle administrative duties, he was also free to train all day. While he was silently lamenting the fate of his brother-in-law, the referee had already called their names. Who do you think will win? Hershey glanced at him. Alaric sent her a rueful smile as he replied. I am sorry, Hershey, but your brother stands no chance against Rasmus. Hershey sighed and shook her head upon hearing this. Whatever happens, I hope my brother will not be disheartened. Chapter 178, The Powerful Young Knight Apprentices. Theo glanced at his opponent with a serious look. He didn't dare underestimate this young knight apprentice, for he knew that this man was one of the best talents in House Silversword. He has so many scars on his body despite being younger than me. Just how many tough battles had he fought? Theo thought when he saw the scars on Rasmus's arms. Fight! The referee's voice drifted into his ears. Hearing this, he immediately lunged at the young knight apprentice and swung the wooden sword. Swish! He had seen Rasmus's fights, and none of his opponents lasted more than 3 moves. He thought that he might have the chance to win if he took the initiative to attack. However, as if having anticipated his plans, Rasmus calmly took a side step to evade the trajectory of his slash. He then pushed Theo using his elbow, causing the latter to lose balance. Subsequently, he made a horizontal cut. Pack! Theo gritted his teeth as he blocked the sword. The moment their wooden swords clashed, he felt the disparity in their physical prowess. What unbelievable strength! He exclaimed in shock. He had fought with many knight apprentices in their household, but no one had this much power. You're quite good, my lord. Few managed to block that strike. He heard Rasmus's nonchalant voice. Theo snorted. He felt that he was being mocked. He put more strength in his sword and released a push kick out of anger. Rasmus nimbly twisted his body to avoid the kick. He then countered with a spinning elbow that struck Theo's face. The crowd gasped in surprise when they saw Theo spitting blood, but no one said a word. This wasn't against the rules, and everyone was allowed to use every means necessary as long as it wasn't fatal. The sharp pain shook Theo, and he almost collapsed from the impact. He could feel his vision spinning due to the impact, but he stubbornly kept himself standing while moving away from his opponent. He doesn't even hesitate to use such moves. Did he learn this from Lord Alaric? Blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He felt that his jaw had been dislocated after taking that elbow. You aren't my opponent, my lord. Please surrender. I don't want to hurt you, Rasmus said indifferently. Theo steadied himself and looked at him with a cold gaze. A warrior of House Paxley will never surrender. Come at me, he shouted. Rasmus narrowed his eyes upon hearing his words. Then I won't be lenient anymore, he muttered before he charged toward Theo. In the next moment, he kicked the ground and propelled himself in midair to deliver a spinning sword slash. It was a move that he had been practicing for a long time, and it was suitable for one-on-one fights. Theo was surprised by the move that he had pulled off. He quickly raised his wooden sword to parry the attack, but when their swords clashed, he felt a heavy force that sent him to the ground. When he fell, he saw Rasmus staring calmly at him. It was a good fight, my lord. Rasmus bowed at him before he turned around and left. The referee announced Rasmus's victory, causing a wave of applause and cheers from the crowd. They all thought that Theo could last a little bit longer, but it ended so abruptly. While everyone was discussing the results of their fight, the referee called Renanti and Aaliyah, telling them to come up on the stage. When these two young warriors stepped onto the stage, another wave of cheers and applause erupted. Who do you think will win? It's hard to say. The both of them are remarkable warriors, and they each have their own unique styles. How about a bet? Bring it on. I bet on Dame Aaliyah. Then I will place my bet on Sir Renanti. Meanwhile, Aaliyah flicked the wooden sword, familiarizing herself with its weight and balance. TSK. She clicked her tongue, feeling a bit annoyed at the wooden sword's overall feel. It didn't fit well with her, and she was certain that it would greatly affect her battle prowess. On the other hand, Renanti was also figuring out the wooden spear in his hand. Are you both ready? The referee's voice suddenly echoed while they were playing with their weapons. Aaliyah and Renanti nodded. Fight! As soon as his words fell, both young knight apprentices moved at the same time. Swish! Swish! Pack! The wooden sword and wooden spear clashed, producing a sharp pack. In the next moment, the two exchanged a series of blows. They were so fast for their level that even some knight apprentices failed to keep up with their speed. The older warriors who were watching the battle were impressed. Unreal. They are on a whole different level compared to the rest of us. Theo, who was being treated on the sidelines, was stunned when he saw this scene. Aaliyah's swordsmanship was precise and fast, while Renanti's spearmanship was firm and masterful. After a few minutes and over 100 exchanges, Renanti used his physically stronger body to overpower Aaliyah, forcing her to retreat successively. Damn it! This bastard is using his strength to overpower me. Aaliyah tried to deflect the other party's spear with a flurry of sword moves, but Renanti's spear was like an immovable pillar, firm and strong. If only I could use my sword, things wouldn't be like this. Aaliyah bit her lower lip with an indignant look. She couldn't accept that she was being pushed back. What made her even more upset was that she couldn't properly utilize her sword techniques because of the poor balance of the wooden sword. In the end, Renanti took the victory. After the referee announced the result, Aaliyah glared at Renanti and walked away with heavy footsteps. The frustration in her eyes was evident. Renanti looked at her defeated figure with a satisfied smile. The girl had been arrogant lately because of her sudden rise in power. He finally had the chance to knock some sense into her. Aaliyah, this defeat will make you stronger. I believe in you. Chapter 179, The Winner. As expected, Aaliyah is still a bit lacking compared to Renanti, but with her swordsmanship talent, she will eventually bridge the gap in their physical prowess. Perhaps she might even win against him depending on the situation. Alaric thought as he looked at Aaliyah's disappointed figure. Aaliyah, Knight Apprentice, EXP, 29/100. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, F. Swordsmanship, A. Close Combat, E. Hunting, F. Archery, F. Strength, 20. Stamina, 20. Agility, 29. Endurance, 20. Vitality, 19. Mana, 8. Her natural talent and potential are higher than mine before I got the cyan screen. While he was deep in his thoughts, the referee called Renanti and Rasmus to the stage. The noise became louder as the two young warriors stepped onto the stage. They had already proven that their abilities were far beyond their peers. Rasmus stared at the confident warrior in front of him. In the past few months, he had barely rested since he used most of his free time for his training. The reason for this relentless pursuit of strength was the strong desire to stand beside Alaric and faithfully serve him to repay the kindness he had shown to his family in the orphanage. Renanti, I have trained harder than everyone else. I'm no longer the same person you fought back then. Don't hold back if you don't want to be defeated. He grinned as he pointed his wooden sword at Renanti. Hearing his words, Renanti skillfully twirled his spear and beckoned tauntingly. You're still as loud as ever, Rasmus. Enough talking and let our skills speak. He was a few years older than Rasmus, so he treated the latter as his younger brother. I know how hard you have trained, Rasmus, but it won't be so easy to defeat me. In truth, Renanti was feeling the most pressure among the last batch of trainees. The expectations of the instructors and the admiration of his peers, everything weighed heavily on him. In the next moment, the two moved instantaneously. Whoosh! Whoosh! Pack! 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 The two young warriors clashed 100 times in just 2 minutes. The fierce collision of their weapons echoed across the venue. Because of the fearsome force of the two, their wooden weapons could no longer handle the pressure and broke apart, forcing them to fight barehanded. Fists, elbows, and kicks were released, causing sharp tearing sounds with every attack. Based on those sounds, the crowd could already feel how painful it would be if they took those blows. Are they really knight apprentices? A knight muttered with disbelief as he watched the young warriors fight. Are they really that powerful, Sir Knight? Asked a young noble lady in a curious tone. To an ordinary person like her, she couldn't differentiate the strength between warriors. The knight nodded with a heavy look. Yes, my lady. They are only knight apprentices, but their physical bodies have already surpassed the confines of their realms. If they become knights, their strength would be many times more powerful compared to ordinary knights. The young noble lady gasped at his words. A few others who had heard their conversation were similarly surprised. Meanwhile, Alaric suddenly let out a sigh. He already knew who would win the battle. Rasmus, your effort is commendable, but you are not the only one putting up an effort. Not to mention that Renanti has something that you don't have. Rasmus, Knight Apprentice, EXP, 38/100. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, F. Swordsmanship, C. Hunting, E. Archery, F. Close Combat, E. Strength, 23. Stamina, 21. Agility, 23. Endurance, 23. Vitality, 22. Mana, 8. Renanti, Knight Apprentice, EXP, 41/100. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, F. Spearmanship, C. Pain Tolerance, B. Close Combat, E. Archery, F. Hunting, E. Strength, 23. Stamina, 23. Agility, 19. Endurance, 29. Vitality, 22. Mana, 9. The attributes of the two were almost similar except for the huge difference in their endurance. However, there was another important factor that put Renanti above Rasmus. It was his pain tolerance trait. Based on the name of the trait, Alaric could already tell what it was for. Pain tolerance. It might sound simple, but this one detail could make a big impact in any battle. The more injuries one would sustain, the more it would affect their combat ability, but this would be negated if they had high pain tolerance. On the stage, Renanti's high endurance finally took effect. He took many blows from Rasmus, but he appeared fine. On the other hand, Rasmus was breathing heavily while trying to stand on his feet. Rasmus, let's decide this in one move. Renanti adjusted his battle stance as he said those words. Rasmus narrowed his eyes. He knew that he would be defeated if the battle dragged on, but it seemed like Renanti didn't want to use this cowardly tactic to win. Now I understand why I respect you, Renanti. With a nod of his head, he prepared himself for their last clash. Everyone watched with bated breaths as the two young warriors quietly observed each other's movements. No one dared to blink, afraid that they would miss the final moments of this match. Suddenly, the two figures on the stage turned into a blur as they lunged toward each other. Rasmus released a flying kick. Whoosh! Seeing this, Renanti blocked his leg with his left arm and sent an elbow strike that was aimed at Rasmus's jaw. Rasmus quickly lifted his arms, shielding his face from the blow. However, the force behind Renanti's sharp elbow left a gash on his arm and sent him crashing to the ground. Bang! The crowd gasped upon witnessing this scene. Renanti grimaced when he felt a sharp pain in his left arm. He broke my arm with that kick. You have improved a lot, Rasmus. His lips curved upwards as he glanced at Rasmus, who was struggling to get up. Rasmus let out a regretful sigh while shaking his head. I admit defeat. He raised his hand. A big round of applause and the sonorous shouts of the crowd followed as the friendly duels concluded. Chapter 180, Tyrone's strange reaction upon meeting Alaric. An hour after the friendly duels, everyone was still discussing the impressive performances of the knight apprentices. The three people sent by House Silversword all entered the final four. Just how did they unearth those talents? I heard that it was Lord Alaric who took in those kids from the orphanage. I can't believe that there are actually so many hidden gems in that place. Many northern lords gathered around Alaric to praise his foresight. My lord, I envy you for discovering those young talents. Indeed. How did you find them, my lord? Alaric smiled faintly at the enthusiastic crowd. To tell you the truth, I only intended to help the orphanage get back on its feet. Seeing those children barely surviving with limited resources. He answered their queries, but he omitted some important details that shouldn't be said. The celebration continued until late evening. In the next few days, the guests finally left the estate and returned to their homes. On the 5th of April, Lucas returned to North Pine Town, but he didn't come alone. Lord Lucas, I would like to thank you once more for accepting my unreasonable request. Tyrone cupped his fists to express his gratitude. When he received the Crown Prince's orders, he went after Lucas in a hurry, and after almost a day of non-stop travel on his horse, he eventually caught up with him. They had traveled together since then. Lord Tyrone, you have already thanked me 3 times. Lucas stared speechlessly at the old Marquis. Ha ha ha. Is that so? It seems like I am forgetting things a lot lately. Tyrone laughed while slapping his thigh. Lucas noticed the unusual friendliness of the old Marquis. At first, he thought that it was just an act, but he realized that the old man was genuinely interested in befriending him. Does the Crown Prince intend to invite me to his faction? Lucas thought as he looked at the old Marquis. Meanwhile, Tyrone was secretly inspecting the town. He noticed that new houses were being constructed. Those people should be the former residents of Alverden. They had already received reports about the events that took place in Alverden. Even until now, he was still shocked by the military power that House Silversword had revealed. Half an hour later, they arrived at the estate. The gatekeepers were stunned when they saw the Baron. Lucas and Tyrone came in secretly so no one noticed their arrival to the town. My lord. Lucas waved his hand and gestured at them to not make a fuss. I hope you do not mind my humble estate, my lord, said Lucas as he made an inviting gesture. Haha. Your worries are unnecessary, my lord. I am not the kind of person who cares about trivial things like appearances. Tyrone chuckled. The two chatted as they headed to the main mansion. By the time they arrived, a group of people was already waiting for them. Congratulations on keeping your rank on the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, my lord. Lucas smiled and nodded. Seeing the familiar faces after leaving home for a while made him feel happy. Let us talk about this later. He then turned his gaze to the old man beside him and said, "This is Marquis Tyrone Galcitar." Except for Alaric, everyone else was flabbergasted upon hearing his introduction. A marquis was a high-ranking noble. There wasn't even a figure at this level in the north, so they were shocked by the old man's identity. Meanwhile, Alaric was feeling a bit emotional when he saw the old marquis. In his past life, the marquis was his direct superior and he had learned a lot of things from him. It was mostly because of his teachings that he was able to become an elite knight. Marquis Tyrone Galcitar. As if sensing his gaze, the old man stared at him. Alaric's striking white hair made him recall a certain person. "My lord, this is my son, Alaric." Lucas's voice drifted into his ears, pulling him from his thoughts. "Oh." Tyrone adjusted his emotions, but the more he stared at the young man, the more agitated he became. The resemblance. Lucas noticed the sudden change in his expression and thought that the old man wasn't feeling well. "Are you all right, my lord?" Tyrone suppressed his agitation and nodded while waving his hand. "I am fine. I think I am just tired from the journey." Lucas felt that the old marquis was hiding something, but he didn't probe further. "Prepare Lord Tyrone's accommodation immediately," he instructed the servants. Tyrone took one last glance at Alaric before he followed the servants. Alaric was feeling confused. When he first met the old marquis, he also showed the same reaction. He once asked the marquis about this, but the old man refused to answer. He looked at Lucas with an inquisitive gaze, but the latter shook his head. "We will talk later. I will go and talk with the marquis first." Lucas hugged his wife and tapped his son's shoulder. Maria nodded without saying anything. After Lucas left, the crowd dispersed and went to do their respective tasks. Alaric remained standing outside the main mansion, still baffled by the old man's reaction. "I must get answers in this life." He turned around and headed to the training ground to begin his daily mission. He had been so busy after the orc subjugation that he almost had no time to complete his daily training. Alaric Silversword, Elite Knight, EXP, 142, 163/1000. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS, Close Combat, C. Archery, E. Hunting, E. Tracking, E. Sixth Sense, E. Monster Affinity, F. Mana Gathering, C. Appraisal, B. Strength, 170. Stamina, 180. Agility, 180. Vitality, 150. Endurance, 160. Mana, 228. Battle points, 1780, 1920. Stat points, 40, 61. Requirements for the next advancement, 1000 EXP, 250 in all attributes, and 10,000 battle points. He had only completed 7 daily missions in the past few weeks. Luckily, there was no penalty or he would be devastated.